The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord was the largest building ever made by any species. It floated in space near the center of the galaxy, a station so big that small moons could fit inside it. Here, the 12 most powerful species in the known universe met to decide the fate of billions. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the entrance with slow, careful steps. She had made this walk many times before. For 20 years, she had represented Earth in this place. For 20 years, she had smiled and bowed and spoken soft words to creatures who looked at humans the way humans might look at insects. Today felt different. Today, something had changed inside her. The chamber was already full when she entered. 12 massive platforms rose from the floor, each one holding the delegates of an elder species. The Vecturi sat on the highest platform, their gray skin and 4 arms making them look like statues carved from stone. Below them, the Thesan coiled their long serpent bodies around crystal seats. The Morkai clicked their insect legs against metal floors. And so on, around the room, 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years before humans ever looked up at the stars. At the very bottom of the chamber, almost on the floor itself, was a small platform. This was where humans sat. The message was clear without words. Humans were the youngest. Humans were the weakest. Humans should be grateful. They were allowed in the room at all. Elena took her seat and waited for the session to begin. Hi. Arbiter Cothrol of the Vecturi rose to speak. He was ancient, even by his species' long standards. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder in a cave. We gathered today to discuss the matter of the Kepler colonies, he announced. The human settlements in the Kepler sector have been found to sit upon significant deposits of rare minerals. The Concord has decided these resources are needed for the greater good of galactic civilization. Elena felt her hands tighten on her chair. The Kepler colonies were home to 4 million people. Families, children. They had built their lives there over 3 generations. The humans will be relocated to suitable alternative worlds. Cothrol continued. They will have 60 standard days to remove themselves. After that time, any humans remaining will be considered trespassers and dealt with accordingly. This was how it always went. The elder species would decide they wanted something that belonged to humans, and they would simply take it. They called it redistribution or optimization or development. But it was theft. It had always been theft. Elena stood up. Around the chamber, alien eyes turned toward her. Some looked annoyed. Others looked amused. None looked worried. Hi, Arbiter, Elena said, keeping her voice calm and respectful. I must formally protest this decision. The Kepler colonies were established under treaties signed by this very Concord. Our people have rights under galactic law. Cothrol made a sound that his species used for laughter. Rights are for those with power to enforce them, Ambassador. Your species has neither the ships nor the weapons to challenge this decision. You may file a formal complaint if it makes you feel better. The forms are available in the administrative office. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Thesan delegate, Cithril, leaned forward with a cruel smile on her scaled face. Perhaps the humans could offer us a poem in exchange for their worlds, she suggested. I hear they are quite good at making pretty words. It is, after all, the only thing they seem capable of producing. More laughter. Elena had heard jokes like this 1,000 times. Humans were weak. Humans were soft. Humans spent their time on art and philosophy instead of conquest. To the elder species, this made humanity pathetic. Elena thought about her grandmother, who had been a young woman when the first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky. She thought about the terror of those early days, when humanity realized they were not alone in the universe and that their neighbors were not friendly. She thought about 73 years of insults, of stolen worlds, of humans treated like children who did not deserve a seat at the adult table, and something inside her finally broke. "You are right," Elena said quietly. The laughter in the chamber slowly died as delegates noticed the change in her voice. "For 73 years, humanity has given you poems and pretty words. We have smiled when you insulted us. We have bowed when you demanded it. We have watched you take our colonies, relocate our people, and strip our worlds bare. And we have done nothing but file complaints." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked like nothing special, just a simple communication unit. But as she held it up, something in her expression made even the oldest delegates pay attention. "I have spent my entire career being polite to you," Elena continued. "I have swallowed my pride so many times I forgot what it tasted like. I convinced myself that patience was wisdom, that someday you would see us as equals if we just proved ourselves worthy." She shook her head slowly. "I was wrong. You were never going to see us as anything but insects. Nothing we did would ever be enough." High Arbiter Cothrol's 4 eyes narrowed. "Ambassador, you forget yourself. Such tone is not appropriate for—" "I am done being appropriate," Elena said, and her voice was no longer quiet. It filled the chamber like a bell being struck. "I am done smiling while you rob my people. I am done bowing to thieves and calling them masters." She pressed a button on her device. "This message is being broadcast to every human world, every human ship, and every human citizen in the galaxy," she announced. "And to them, I say this. The waiting is over. The smiling is over. The politeness is over. For the first time in 73 years, the Concord of 12 saw something new in a human's eyes. They did not recognize it at first. They had never seen it before. It was the look of someone who was no longer afraid. You have spent decades asking what humanity was doing while we smiled and bowed and wrote our pretty poems," Elena said. "Today, you receive your answer." She pressed another button, and somewhere in the darkness of space, 700 ships began to move. The silence in the chamber lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. Security forces rushed toward the doors. Communication devices lit up across every platform as panicked messages flew between worlds. High Arbiter Cothrol slammed his massive fist against his podium, demanding order. But no one was listening anymore. Elena stood perfectly still in the middle of the storm. Waiting. It took nearly an hour for the chamber to calm down. By then, armed guards surrounded the human platform, their weapons pointed at Elena from every direction. She had not moved. She had not even sat down. She simply stood there with a small smile on her face, the same smile she had worn for 20 years. Except now, it meant something different. Cothrol's voice was cold when he finally spoke again. "You have made a grave mistake, Ambassador. Whatever trick you think you are playing, it will not save your species from the consequences of this insult." "No trick," Elena replied. "Just a long overdue truth." She raised her communication device again. "Admiral Chun, are you ready?" A new voice filled the chamber, coming from speakers that should not have been accessible to any human signal. It was a calm voice, the voice of a man who had spent his life preparing for this moment. "Ready, Ambassador. Prometheus fleet standing by." The Thesan delegate Cithril hissed with something between anger and amusement. "A fleet? You expect us to be frightened by human ships? Your entire species does not possess enough vessels to threaten even one of our patrol squadrons." "That is what you believe," Elena said. "That is what we wanted you to believe." She pressed a command on her device, and the center of the chamber came alive with light. A holographic display appeared, filling the empty space with images that made every delegate freeze in place. Star maps. Hundreds of them. Systems that the elder species had marked as worthless, empty, dead. Brown dwarf stars with no planets worth colonizing. Asteroid fields too far from shipping lanes to matter. Gas giants orbiting dim red suns. Except they were not empty. The images showed shipyards hidden in the shadows of failed stars. Factories built inside hollowed asteroids. Research stations buried so deep in radiation clouds that no sensor could detect them. And ships. Thousands of ships being built in secret, in places where no one ever thought to look. For 73 years, Elena said, humanity smiled and bowed and let you take what you wanted. And while you were busy dividing our colonies among yourselves, we were building. The display shifted, showing a single vessel in detail. It was unlike anything the elder species had ever seen. Their ships were elegant, curved, beautiful in the way that powerful things often are. This ship was none of those things. It was angular, harsh, brutal. It looked like a weapon that someone had figured out how to fly. The Prometheus-class battleship, Elena announced. One of 17 new ship designs humanity has developed in complete secrecy. They run on something we call cascade drives, engines that fold space in ways your scientists told you were impossible. A ship using cascade drive can cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The Markai delegate, a clicking insectoid creature named Visical, spoke up. Impossible. We would have detected such construction. Our sensors monitor Your sensors monitor the places you think matter, Elena interrupted. You never looked in the worthless places. You never imagined that the weak little humans might be doing something other than crying about their lost colonies. She turned to face Cothrell directly. You were so certain of our helplessness that you never once considered we might be lying. Admiral Chun's voice returned to the speakers. Ambassador, the demonstration vessel is in position. Elena nodded. Show them. High above the station, in the cold darkness of space, a ship appeared. One moment there was nothing. The next moment, a Prometheus-class battleship hung in the void like a predator that had been waiting in the shadows. The elder species had cloaking technology, but nothing like this. Their sensors had shown empty space until the ship chose to be seen. The vessel turned slowly, pointing its main weapon at a small moon that orbited a nearby planet. The moon was uninhabited, just a ball of rock and ice that no one had ever found useful. The ship fired. A beam of light connected the vessel to the moon for just a heartbeat. Then the moon began to collapse. It did not explode. It did not shatter. It fell inward, matter crushing against matter, rock and ice compressing into an impossibly small point until there was simply nothing left. Where a moon had existed moments before, there was now only empty space. The chamber was completely silent. Gravitational compression, Elena explained, her voice calm and steady. One of the technologies your scientists called theoretically impossible. We have weapons that crush matter into nothing. We have shields that exist outside normal space where your weapons cannot touch them. We have sensors that can read the expression on your face from 1,000 light years away. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every ship in the Prometheus fleet carries weapons that can destroy planets. We have 700 of them. And thanks to our cascade drives, they can be anywhere in the galaxy within hours. She met Cothrall's four-eyed gaze without flinching. You spent 73 years treating humanity like insects. You never stopped to wonder what kind of insects we might be. Cothrall's gray skin had gone pale. When he spoke, his voice was not nearly as steady as before. This is madness. You cannot threaten the entire Concord. There will be consequences. There will be a conversation, Elena said firmly. For the first time in 73 years, there will be an honest conversation between humanity and the elder species. You will listen. You will consider. And then you will decide whether you want to continue living in a galaxy where humanity exists. She sat down in her small chair at the bottom of the chamber and folded her hands in her lap. "The politeness is over," she said simply. "Now the seriousness begins." The hours that followed Elena's announcement were the longest in galactic history. Messages flew between homeworlds at the speed of light. Emergency councils gathered on a dozen planets. Military commanders demanded information about these impossible human ships that had appeared from nowhere. But most importantly, the delegates of the Concord of 12 remained in their seats, unable to leave, unable to look away from the small human woman who had turned their universe upside down. When the main display screen activated again, it was not Elena who appeared. Instead, the face that filled the chamber belonged to Secretary General Thomas Okafor, broadcasting love from Earth. He was an old man with white hair and dark skin that showed the lines of many years and many worries. His eyes were kind but tired, the eyes of someone who had carried heavy burdens for a very long time. "Distinguished members of the Concord," he began, speaking slowly and clearly. "My name is Thomas Okafor. I speak for Earth and for all human colonies. I speak for the 4 billion people living on worlds you have stolen from us. I speak for the millions who were forced from their homes to make room for your mining operations. I speak for every human who has been called primitive, inferior, worthless." He paused, and when he continued, his voice was heavy with emotion. "I was a child when your ships first came to our sky. I remember the fear. I remember thinking that everything was going to end, that creatures from the stars would destroy us like stepping on ants." He shook his head slowly. "But you did not destroy us. You did something worse. You let us live, but only as servants, only as lesser beings who should be grateful for whatever scraps you threw our way." In the chamber, the delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry. Others looked confused. A few, the younger ones from species that had themselves been bullied by the elders, looked almost hopeful. "For 73 years, humanity has been building in secret," Okafor continued. "We have developed technologies that surpass anything in your fleets. We have ships that can strike any world in the galaxy within hours. We have weapons that can end civilizations." He leaned forward, his kind eyes suddenly sharp. "But we have not come here to threaten you with destruction. That would make us no better than you." He pulled out a datapad and began to read. "These are humanity's terms. They are not suggestions. They are not the beginning of negotiations. They are requirements." The chamber fell absolutely silent. "First, every human colony currently under alien administration will be returned to human control immediately. Not next year. Not after review. Immediately. The Kepler colonies, the Tau Ceti settlements, the Proxima stations, all of them. Our people come home." Cothrell started to speak, but Okafor continued as if he had not noticed. "Second, the classification of junior species is abolished. Humanity will no longer be treated as children who need supervision. Neither will any other species that your Concord has placed in that category. Every thinking being in this galaxy deserves dignity, regardless of how long their species has traveled the stars." The Markai delegate Visical clicked his mandibles in agitation. "You cannot simply demand changes to systems that have existed for thousands of years." Third, Okafor continued without acknowledging the interruption, "the Concord will be restructured. The 12 elder species will no longer make decisions for the entire galaxy. Every spacefaring civilization will have a voice. Every species will have a vote. Power will be shared, or power will be contested." Now several delegates were shouting, their voices overlapping in a storm of protest. But Okafor's image remained calm on the screen, waiting for the noise to die down. "I understand that these terms are difficult," he said when quiet returned. I understand that you have held power for so long that sharing it feels like losing it. But consider the alternative. The display shifted, showing a map of the galaxy. 12 points of light appeared, each one marking the homeworld of an elder species. Right now, as I speak, human ships are positioned within striking distance of every one of these worlds, Okafor explained. Not in orbit, not making threats, just waiting, watching, ready. We let that sink in. We could have come to you with fire and demanded surrender. We could have destroyed your fleets before you knew we existed. We could have done to you exactly what you have done to us for 73 years. His voice softened. But that is not who humanity is. We did not build these weapons because we wanted war. We built them because we wanted peace, and you would not let us have it. Elena stood up from her platform and added her voice to the broadcast. 73 years ago, humanity entered this galaxy with open hands. We wanted to learn from you. We wanted to explore the stars alongside you. We wanted friendship. She walked to the center of the chamber, ignoring the weapons still pointed at her from every direction. You answered our friendship with contempt. You taught us that kindness is seen as weakness in this galaxy. So we learned a new lesson. We learned that sometimes the only way to earn respect is to make others fear what happens if they disrespect you. On the screen, Okafor nodded sadly. We take no joy in this moment. We would have preferred a galaxy where strength was not necessary, where being good neighbors was enough. But you did not give us that galaxy. So we built the tools to change it. He looked directly into the camera, directly into the eyes of every delegate in the chamber. Humanity is giving you something you never gave us, a choice. Accept our terms. Join us in building a better galaxy, and we will be allies instead of enemies. Reject our terms, cling to your old ways, and discover what happens when you make an enemy of a species that spent 73 years preparing for exactly this moment. The screen went dark. Elena stood alone in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And she was not afraid. You have 48 hours to respond, she said quietly. Choose wisely. The galaxy did not respond as one. It never had. The Concord of 12 was not a union of friends, but a gathering of rivals who had learned to tolerate each other. And now, faced with an impossible choice, those old cracks began to split wide open. 3 species accepted humanity's terms within the first day. The Valoran were the first, a quiet people with silver skin who had been bullied by the elder races for centuries. Their ambassadors simply stood up in the chamber and walked to Elena's platform, standing beside her in silent support. The Kethver followed, and then the Dashan, both younger species who had never been comfortable with the Concord's cruelty. The rest argued. High Arbiter Cothrol tried to hold them together, speaking of ancient traditions and the natural order of things. The strong ruled and the weak served. This was how it had always been. This was how it must always be. To accept humanity's terms was to admit that everything they believed was wrong. Some listened to him. The Markai, whose empire was built on conquest, refused to bow to creatures they had considered barely intelligent a century ago. The Thesan hegemony, proud and cruel, declared that they would teach the humans a lesson they would never forget. On the 4th day, the Thesan attacked. A fleet of 8,000 warships descended on the human colony world of New Brisbane. It was a beautiful planet, green and blue and alive with farms and cities and children playing in schoolyards. 12 million people called it home. The Thesan commander, a seasoned admiral named Kethsar, had fought 100 battles and never lost. His fleet moved with perfect coordination, ships spreading out to surround the planet and block any escape. He sent a message to the surface, giving the humans 1 hour to surrender. They did not respond. Kethsar smiled. He had heard the stories of human weapons, but he did not believe them. No species could develop such technology in secret. It was a bluff, a desperate trick by a desperate people. He would call that bluff and show the galaxy that humanity was still weak, still afraid, still nothing more than insects pretending to be equals. He ordered his fleet to advance. 43 human ships appeared between his fleet and the planet. Kethzar almost laughed. 43 against 8,000. The humans were either brave or stupid, probably both. He commanded his weapons officers to fire. Nothing happened. The human ships had not attacked. They had not needed to. The moment they appeared, something had changed. Every Thesan vessel, from the smallest fighter to the largest battleship, suddenly found itself unable to move. Their engines still worked. Their power systems still functioned. But no matter what commands they entered, the ships simply hung in space, motionless. A human voice crackled through their communications. "This is Admiral Marcus Chun of the United Earth Fleet. Your vessels have been caught in a spatial anchor field. You cannot move until we release you." Kethzar hissed with fury. "This is impossible. There is no such technology. There is now." Admiral Chun's voice was calm, almost friendly. "We have held your ships in place to give you time to think. Right now, our weapons are not armed. We have not fired a single shot. We do not want to destroy you. You cannot destroy 8,000 ships with 43. Kethzar shouted. There was a pause. When Chun spoke again, his voice was sad. "We can destroy your ships in approximately 4 minutes. We know this because we have run the calculations many times, hoping we would never have to use them." Another pause. "But we do not want to kill your crews. We are not you. We do not celebrate death or conquest. We simply want to be left alone." The spatial anchor field shifted slightly, and a single Thesan vessel found itself able to move again. A small patrol ship with a crew of 12. "We are releasing one of your ships," Chun explained. "It will return to Thesan space and deliver our message. The rest of your fleet will remain here until your government contacts us with an answer. If they accept humanity's terms, we will release every ship and every crew unharmed. If they refuse..." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Kethzar watched the patrol ship disappear into hyperspace, carrying his shame back to his homeworld. He was a warrior who had never known defeat. Now he floated helplessly in space while 43 human vessels held his entire fleet like toys in a child's hand. The message spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The Thesan fleet, the pride of the hegemony, captured without a single shot fired. 8,000 ships, held by 43. The humans had not even needed to fight. They had simply reached out and stopped the battle before it began. 2. More species joined humanity's side that day, but it was the message that came next that truly changed everything. It arrived on a frequency that humanity had designated for emergency communications, a channel that anyone could use to reach them in times of crisis. The signal was weak, poorly encrypted, clearly sent by someone who did not have access to proper equipment. "Please," the voice said, broken and desperate. "Please, if you are truly what you say you are, if you truly want to help those who cannot help themselves, we are the Kethari. We have been slaves for 9,000 years. We have no ships, no weapons, no hope. But we have heard what you did to the Thesan fleet. We have heard that you freed the Kepler colonists without asking for anything in return." The voice cracked with emotion. "Our world is controlled by the Vectari. They use us for labor, for experiments, for entertainment. We are not people to them. We are things. Generations of our kind have been born and died in chains, dreaming of freedom that never came." There was a long silence. "If there is any mercy left in this galaxy," the voice whispered, "please, help us. On the bridge of the UES Prometheus, Admiral Chun listened to the message 3 times. Then he opened a channel to Earth. "Secretary General," he said quietly, "we have received a request from a species called the Cathari. They are asking for liberation from vectory control." There was silence on the other end. Then Okafor's voice, heavy with the weight of the decision he was about to make. "How many ships do you need?" Chun looked at the star charts showing the vectory homeworld and its defenses. He thought about 9,000 years of slavery. He thought about generations born in chains. "All of them," he said. "I need all of them." The vectory had ruled Cathari Prime for 9,000 years. In that time, they had built monuments to their own glory on the bones of slaves. Great cities rose from the labor of those who would never walk their streets as free beings. Factories hummed with the work of hands that had never known rest. The Cathari were small creatures with delicate bodies and large dark eyes, perfectly suited for work in tight spaces and detailed tasks that larger species found difficult. They had tried to rebel once, 3,000 years ago. The vectory response had been so brutal that no Cathari had dared to dream of freedom since. Until now, the human fleet arrived at dawn, local time. 700 ships appeared in the sky above the planet, their angular shapes blocking out the light of the rising sun. For the vectory administrators on the ground, it must have seemed like the end of the world. Admiral Chun's voice echoed from every speaker on the planet. "This is the United Earth Fleet. We are here at the request of the Cathari people. Your occupation of this world ends today. You have 1 hour to surrender all military positions and begin evacuation of non-essential personnel. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The vectory commander, a veteran named Torax, laughed when he heard the message. He had 50,000 soldiers on the planet and orbital defense platforms that had never been breached. He sent a reply filled with insults and threats. He stopped laughing when the first human Marines landed. They came down in small craft that moved faster than anything Torax had ever seen, dodging defensive fire as if the guns were standing still. When they touched down, the soldiers inside were already moving, spreading out in perfect formation, their armor gleaming in the morning light. Vectory soldiers opened fire. Their weapons hit the human armor and did nothing. Not a scratch. Not a dent. The humans did not even slow down. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Human soldiers moved through vectory positions like water flowing through rocks. They did not kill unless they had to. They disabled weapons, captured officers, and secured buildings with a speed that seemed almost supernatural. In 3 hours, every military installation on the planet was under human control. In 5 hours, the orbital platforms had surrendered. In 6 hours, Torax himself was sitting in a holding cell, still trying to understand what had happened. Not a single Cathari had been harmed in the operation. The humans had planned every move to avoid any risk to the people they came to save. When the fighting was over, something happened that had not happened on Cathari Prime in 9,000 years. The gates of the labor camps opened. The doors of the factories unlocked. And the Cathari, blinking in the sunlight, walked free. They came out slowly at first, afraid that this was some cruel trick. Generations of suffering had taught them that hope was dangerous, that dreaming of freedom only made the chains hurt more. But the human soldiers did not stop them. The human soldiers smiled and stepped aside and let them pass. One of them, an old female Cathari, whose scales had turned gray with age, approached a human Marine standing guard near a former labor camp. She was so small that she barely reached his waist. She looked up at him with those large, dark eyes, eyes that had seen more suffering than any creature should ever know. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Are we free?" The Marine removed his helmet. He was young, with brown skin and kind eyes. He knelt down so that he was at her level. Ostera. Yes, he said simply. You are free. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she began to cry. Not quiet tears, but great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. 9,000 years of slavery, ending in a single morning. 9,000 years of chains, broken by strangers from a world she had never heard of. The Marine did something then that was not in any training manual. He reached out and held her while she cried, letting her grief and relief pour out onto his armor. He held her until the tears stopped, and then he helped her stand again. What do we do now? She asked. We have never been free. We do not know how. The Marine smiled gently. You learn. It takes time, but you learn. And we will help you. The liberation of Kethari Prime sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Vectari Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful in the Concord, had been humiliated in a single day. Their slaves had been freed, their soldiers captured, their pride shattered. More importantly, the other species were watching Dot in the weeks that followed. The Concord of 12 collapsed. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years suddenly found common ground in their fear of humanity. Some tried to form alliances against Earth, but the coalitions fell apart as quickly as they formed. Others rushed to accept humanity's terms, hoping to be seen as friends rather than enemies. But something else happened too. Something that Elena Vasquez had not expected. When she stood in that chamber and declared that the Politeness was over, other enslaved species began sending messages. The Voss, used as miners by the Morkai. The Thesan lower castes, barely better than slaves in their own empire. Dozens of peoples who had suffered under the elder races for centuries, all reaching out to humanity for help. 6 months after Elena's announcement, a new assembly gathered. Not in the Concord's ancient chamber, but in a new station built by human engineers in a neutral system. They called it the Galactic Forum, and for the first time in history, it was open to everyone. 347 species sent representatives. Elder races sat beside those they had once ruled. Former slaves stood equal to former masters. And at the center of it all, Ambassador Elena Vasquez rose to give the opening address. I remember standing in the old Concord chamber, she began, being told that humans were insects. Being told that our kindness made us weak. Being told that we should be grateful to exist at all. She looked out at the assembled delegates, at the incredible diversity of life that filled the hall. They were wrong. Kindness is not weakness. Patience is not surrender. And choosing not to fight does not mean you cannot. She paused. Humanity did not build our weapons because we wanted to rule the galaxy. We built them because we wanted everyone in the galaxy to have the chance to be free. In the gallery, a group of Kethari children watched with wonder. They were the first generation of their species to be born without chains. They did not fully understand what was happening, but they understood that the universe had changed, and that somehow they were part of it. The old order is over, Elena continued. The galaxy of masters and slaves, of strong and weak, of elder and lesser. That galaxy died the day humanity decided to stop smiling. In its place, we will build something new, something better. A galaxy where every voice matters, where every being has dignity, where kindness is strength and cruelty is punished. She looked directly at the representatives of the former Concord species. You can be part of this new galaxy, or you can be left behind by it. The choice is yours. Far above the station, the UE's Prometheus held station among hundreds of other vessels, human and alien alike. On its bridge, Admiral Chun watched the broadcast with a satisfied smile. His first officer looked at him curiously. Do you think it will last, sir? Peace, I mean. Chun thought about the question for a long moment. He thought about 73 years of preparation, about weapons that could destroy worlds, about the terrible responsibility that came with power. I do not know, he admitted. But I know this. The galaxy will never go back to what it was. Whatever comes next, it will be different. Better, if we work at it. And if anyone tries to bring back the old ways, he looked out at the stars, at the endless possibilities spread before them. They will find that humanity has not forgotten how to be serious. The seriousness had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.